Abrams, owner of Grand Jewelers Pawn and Loan, and for over 57 years we've been advising and guiding our clients about buying and selling karat gold jewelry, diamonds, coins, and high-grade watches. If you've been thinking about how to go about selling your pieces, now is your opportunity to liquidate those pieces and put your newfound cash to work for you. If you don't know whom to trust when it comes to liquidating your jewelry assets, turn to Grand Jewelers Pawn and Loan in Rancho Cucamonga. We're professionals in the jewelry industry with over 110 years of combined expertise and knowledge, and we will empower you with the knowledge enabling you to make a smart decision about liquidating your jewelry. Grand Jewelers Pawn and Loan, located in the Signature Center, Rancho Cucamonga, and we're open till 6 p.m. Monday to Saturdays and 5 p.m. on Sundays. Check us out on Yelp and Google. We're a 5-star rated family business, and we'd love to get to know you. Grand Jewelers, located in the Signature Center, Rancho Cucamonga.
Psst! Hey, you. Yeah, you. Do you know where you are? Well, you've done it now. You're listening to KCAA Loma Linda, your CNBC news station. So expect the unexpected.
News, weather, and talk on KCAA 102.3 FM, broadcasting to the Moreno Valley, Corona, and Riverside.
Hey, this is Todd from the Flip Flop Investor Show. Join us every Thursday at 4 p.m. Get your back up off the wall and start making investments in real estate like you've always wanted to do. Tune in every Thursday at 4 p.m. and we'll talk about investing in real estate here in the Inland Empire and beyond. We'll have special guests from newbies to seasoned veterans who will share their secrets for their success in real estate. Before you spend your life savings on a real estate seminar, be sure to come check out the Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club on the 4th Wednesday of every month at the Mission Inn in Riverside. The show's at 4 on Thursdays and the club is on the 4th Wednesday. See you right here this Thursday at 4 p.m. on KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
How you gonna do it if you really don't wanna dance? By standing on the wall. Get your back up off the wall. Tell me.
Del Walmsley here. The first thing you're going to have to learn is that until you stop expecting our politicians or anyone else to change your life isn't going to change. The only person who can change your life is you, but you need to know how. Listen to my show, the Del Walmsley Radio Show, where the hype ends and the help begins. Right here on KCAA, now broadcasting on 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, the stations that leave no listener behind.
Bob Vila here with my home improvement tip of the day. Whether you're building a new home or looking to spruce up the interior space of your older home, recessed lighting is a great way to add style and functionality to your digs. Before you head to the home center, though, give some serious thought to exactly what you want to do with the lights. For example, wall washer fixtures flood walls with wide swaths of light, and when they're positioned around the perimeter of a room, the walls appear to recede, making the room look more airy and inviting. Narrow beam adjustable lights, on the other hand, can be aimed at artwork to create dramatic effects. Installing them on the ceiling about 1.5 feet away from the wall usually gives good results. Fixtures that have recessed reflectors put out the most light and are best for task lighting, such as illuminating a desk. Careful though, make sure the lighting is positioned directly above the target area so you don't get shadows from your head or shoulders. Get more info at bobvila.com and right here at home with me, Bob Vila.
My name's Craig Ebel. Join me Saturday mornings at 5 a.m. for my show, It's Polka Time. Start your weekend off with the biggest and best variety of polka music over KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM on your radio dial, also streaming online at kcaaradio.com. It's Polka Time with me, Craig Ebel, Saturday mornings at 5, right here at KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.
KCAA, where every day is a great day.
Welcome to U-Turn Radio. Here at U-Turn Radio, we believe in big-hearted communities and small government. Join your hosts, Nadia Renner, Tom Murphy, and Eric Steinman, as we work to put local governments on a diet and champion the charities that support your community. So come on, join us and let's turn it around.
Welcome to U-Turn Radio. Happy Thursday. This is our first time on a Thursday at this time at 3 o'clock. We'll be here every Thursday at 3 o'clock. We are U-Turn Radio, and my co-hosts are Tom Murphy, Eric Steinman, and we have a special guest today, Sean. Thank you for being with us. And we are... Let's tell them a little bit for the people that are tuning in for the first time, since we are on a new date and time. Tom, what do we do here at U-Turn Radio?
Well, our big deal, or our big deal, is that we believe in big-hearted communities and small governments. So the show is kind of a mix of those two themes. If we'll interview a big-hearted community, a local nonprofit, somebody like that comes into the studio, we'll interview them, get some information. The other thing that goes along with this that I'm sure you'll give the spiel a little better than me is that any caller that calls in and kind of contributes to the show, we got this wheel that we spin, and wherever it lands, we will donate money to their favorite charity.
That's right.
So that's the big-hearted community part of it. The small government part is... much of the show is given to government activity in the local area and what it's doing and how that makes us feel.
Right. So we definitely cover local topics. Today we're covering something that we've covered previously on U-Turn Radio. Every Sunday we used to be on here on KCAA before on Sundays, and we covered what we called the FP5, which is a fire prevention zone. And we covered that, and we had, 4 shows on FP5?
I think it was 5.
Or 5.
Although there was one that was really bad, so I want to block that one out. But the other ones were really good. But yeah, I think it was 5 shows on FP5.
And so pretty much we bring awareness to different topics that are happening here in San Bernardino that nobody else talks about, I feel like. So let's talk a little bit, and for the people that want to listen to the FP5, because I think it's a lot of explanation. So we're going to recap it really short before we get into today's topic. But you can find that at uturnradio.com, and you'll find all the different episodes that we've covered here at U-Turn, and you can learn a little bit about us as well. But let's recap a little bit. What is FP5, Tom?
Yeah, that's a great. FP5 is short for Fire Prevention Zone 5. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into the details, but basically the government of San Bernardino County has used Fire Prevention Zone 5 to impose on 94% of the square mileage of the county an additional special tax of I think it's about $157, and they did that without a vote. So that's the topic.
Right, that's our main topic, and we went into details, like I mentioned, on the previous 5 shows. But our special guest today is Sean Wade, and Sean was part of something that Brennan did that is kind of like our sister to our radio show. So why don't we explain how you got in touch with Sean and how we're gonna pretty much talk about today's topic.
Okay, you hit on a couple things. First of all, Sean Wade is our in-house attorney for the Red Brennan Group. The Red Brennan Group underwrites this show.
Right.
And it's a 501c4, a nonprofit, and we're dedicated to small government and particularly focused on the Inland Empire. So amongst a number of things that Sean does, he's, if you will, carrying the flag for the Red Brennan Group in court as we challenge the county on Fire Prevention Zone 5. Mm-hmm. So that's his role.
So you got involved. The reason why you got Sean was because
You mean originally?
Well, for this part that we're going to cover today, but
Okay.
originally, and then we'll get into why originally.
Okay. Sean today is going to give us an update on the Red Brennan Group's lawsuit. And he's also going to comment on, there's actually 2 other lawsuits that are winding their way through the courts on this issue. And obviously he's not going to speak as a lawyer, if you will, to
Right.
those issues. He's going to comment really just kind of on the status and kind of give maybe a little bit of an insight into some of the legal terms and
Hey,
those
Tom,
types of things.
since this is our first time in this time slot, we probably should give a little background on just what the problem is, because probably a lot of people listening don't understand that it's a problem to impose a tax on people to pay for fire. But I think you got to start by saying that there already is a tax on everybody to pay for fire. And apparently it's not amounting to a lot. So this current FP5 tax imposes a tax on the people that are not causing the problem for the fire department. They took over the San Bernardino City Fire Department. They incurred a lot more administrative overhead, and those are numbers borne out by their own budget numbers that say, look, we're spending a lot more in the city, and we're spending a lot more on admin. And their conclusion to deal with that was, well, let's go tax the people out in the rural areas of the county, the unincorporated areas. So you have people out there that, have property with nothing on it that can burn or nothing that could get damaged that are now being taxed to pay for, overspending, if you will, in the cities, the incorporated areas that are not getting taxed. And it's not the way that the people have asked that these things be handled when it's ever been put to a vote to them. Proposition 13, Proposition 218, they say we would like to have a vote on any taxes like this. This is not only them not having a vote, but it's putting it on the people that aren't even part of the problem. And that aren't getting anything from it. They're not, fire zones were created so that people could go in there and say, look, we're going to solve a problem for you, provide you fire service here, and here's what you'll pay for it. But here, they're not providing any services. Their services are all going into the city. The tax is all going into the rural area. Unfair tax.
Yeah, and
unfair tax illegally applied.
We're going to get to kind of a history thing where we're going to kind of talk to kind of how it all came about, and Sean's going to talk to us a little bit about what's going forward on that. The one of the things we like to do though is kind of set the hook for our listeners, and the hook for today is.
No taxation without representation.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, where have you heard that before?
Long time ago when I didn't exist, but in my history books.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Boston Tea Party.
It came. The first, I guess, use was back in the 1700s, and in short, we fought. That's why we flew. Got rid of the king, had a Revolutionary War, got rid of the king. Right.
Right.
One of the issues was no taxation without representation. Well, okay. So now you jump forward to December 18th. In Superior Court, and in open court, there's this conversation, and it's an FP5 associated conversation. Our friends out at San Antonio Heights, who went through this, if you will, maybe a year earlier, they are working their way through the courts with the lawsuit. And Judge Cohn is the name of the Superior Court judge that was listening to their arguments. And this is a quote from the San Bernardino County Sentinel. Mark Gutlick was in the court, and this is based on his notes. He says, Judge Cohn opined that levying a, quote, relatively small assessment had led to a rallying cry from San Antonio Heights. They were saying no taxation without representation.
Right.
Because that's what had happened to them, and that's kind of why they came to court. So
they weren't given the right to vote on this tax being applied on them.
And so what Cohn says, he goes on to say, such a sentiment is a legitimate one with an obvious historical and constitutional import. Thank you for that input. Those considerations, listen to this, those considerations are trumped by the consideration that the county, the city, and LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission, abode by all the proper procedural protocols. Okay, I'm going to reinterpret that for you.
Okay.
Taxation without representation is okay as long as we follow all the proper procedures.
So you're saying that you can kind of get away with it, in other words.
Well, I'm not saying.
Well, this is what it's showing us.
This was in open superior court. And our goal today is kind of talk through that and explain why this is such a big deal. You know, there's that comment that we've actually used before. One lawyer with a briefcase can steal more than 100 men with guns. I think that's from The Godfather.
It is.
And in this case, lawyers from the county, or I'll say the county bureaucracy, is really stealing $27 million from
every
the
year.
Unincorporated, every year.
Every year going up.
From the residents of mostly unincorporated areas. There's a couple incorporated areas that also involved. And they're doing it by getting around that 2/3 tax or that 2/3 vote that Eric mentioned that's required.
So pretty much they can keep imposing these taxes. Money can keep getting higher as long as they do it the way that they're doing it without getting in trouble?
Yeah, we probably won't get into kind of those details in terms of how they did it, but there is a procedure that buried in California LAFCO law where taxes can be imposed without the residents voting on it. But so now we go to the background that Eric was talking about.
It's not. We don't think that it's properly in the law. It's they assert that it's in the law, and that law, which was passed by the legislature, should take precedence over the amendments to the Constitution that were passed by the people. Mm-hmm. You know, anyone in a constitutional democracy would tell you that's not the order of precedence. That the Constitution takes precedence over anything the legislature does. They have to adapt the laws to the Constitution, not the other way around. So.
And just as an aside, listeners, if you phone in, local call line there is 909-792-5222. We'd love to take your comments, your opinions. We're certainly open to conflicting opinions. We'd love to talk about those. And if you call, we'll do the spin for charity.
Right, because letters for the FP5, what they thought, they said that it was going to be a vote, were sent out. And we did cover that on a previous show when we covered FP5. But this doesn't only hurt the people living in these areas. It's also business. We had Bob Cable from Ontario Airport.
Cable Airport.
Airport, who also talked about and we covered how it also affects not just like the local people or citizens, but business owners. And like you said, if this has impacted you in a certain way, we would love to hear from you. 909-792-5222.
In English or Spanish?
You could do both. Yo hablo español y les puedo ayudar. So if you speak little English and you know about the FP5, me pueden llamar al 909-792-5222. I just gave out the number and I said if they know little English, they could call us I'll translate.
Okay, so the goal is to kind of get to Sean so he can give us a status update. So I'm going to blast through the background of this, and if a listener is interested, go to uturnradio.com and dig up the 4 or 5 shows we did on it. But basically, in 2006, Hellendale, which is basically a small area about 15, 20 minutes drive north of Victorville, they self-imposed a tax. You know, 2/3 of the voters of Hellendale, which in this case was 1,022 people, voted to impose a special tax on their own little area because they want their fire station at the time was paid call,
right?
And they wanted to go to 24/7 fully staffed, And there was, I think, some other some construction they wanted to do. So, totally legal, done by ballot. And like I said, 1,022 voters out there voted yes. So, things kind of went along. 2008, the fire district kind of rearranged or realigned itself. But really, not much happened with that, if you will, until we get to 2016. And suddenly, you have this explosive growth of county fire because working kind of hand in glove with LAFCO, they annexed the entire city of San Bernardino, which at the time, I believe was in bankruptcy. So what the city of San Bernardino was able to do is offload $30 million worth of charges to their balance sheet to county fire. Now, they had to follow it up with some tax money and that type of thing. But anyway, so $30 million a year are now transferred from the city of San Bernardino to the county. Also in 2016, county fire swallowed up fire and EMT services for Needles, 29 Palms, and someone else, another
City of Ontario.
I think they were 2017.
Okay, or Upland.
Yeah. So in 2016, it was Needles, 29 Palms, and then 2017, Upland followed. And that's where San Antonio Heights gets dragged into this, because when they swallowed up Upland, they also swallowed up, if you will, the unincorporated community of San Antonio Heights. Mm-hmm. And they weren't having it. They took them to court. And then in 2018, County Fire, at their regularly scheduled budget meeting, comes to the table and said, "Hey guys, we're $29 million short in our budget, and I don't know what to do about it." Well, that's not fair. Here's the plan: we can either cut services, although they didn't really trumpet that one too much. We can cut services, or we can go ahead and expand this fire prevention zone, and in doing so, we can impose on 94% of the entire county property taxes, an additional special tax of 157. As Eric rightly pointed out, we're already taxed for this via the property tax. So that's, it's kind of a long story. We're trying to give some back,
right.
But that's how we got to it.
And most importantly, they're not adding any special services now that they're imposing, when they say we can impose these taxes, but they're not adding any other service to this.
Right, yeah.
It's the same thing.
To maintain services. Your services are not going to improve. Go ahead.
Oh, no, so then the results were, that brings us today here.
Yeah, basically, 3 of the county supervisors raised their hand, voted yes, 2 voted no. The whole thing was imposed. So the Red Burning Group, with Sean as our attorney, and another gentleman brought 2 separate lawsuits into San Bernardino County Court. Okay, so that was all a long story to get to where we are today. And so kind of what we're going to do kind of as we go along is, first of all, we're gonna have Sean review for us the law, and he's going to give us kind of a look at Props 13, 218, 26. What do they do?
Okay, so all of them add amendments to the California Constitution. Oh, am I a little too far? Okay. Yeah. They add amendments to the California Constitution that deal with the people having a say in whether or not taxation is imposed upon them. Prop 13 was the first one in 1978, which most people know it as the property tax. It caps your property tax at 1%. But the other thing it did was it stopped the state from imposing statewide taxation on individuals without a 2/3 majority vote. So 2/3 of the state needs to approve it. So obviously the loophole with that is that it's a state tax. So local governments were still able to impose taxes without 2/3 vote. So that's what Prop 218 does. Prop 218 came in 1996 and said that, okay, state and local governments, including counties, cities, everything like that, also have to have a 2/3 majority approval by the citizens that will be taxed before a tax can be imposed. And then Prop 26 in 2010, after 13 and 218 came in, no taxation without representation, governments got creative and they started labeling things as fees instead of taxes. So we don't need approval because it's a fee, not a tax. So what Prop 26 does is it sets out this test for determining when something is a tax, meaning when it needs a 2/3 vote, and when something is a fee, when it doesn't. So that was kind of the history. As you can see, as you go down the chain, each one tries to fix oftentimes judicially created loopholes with the previous iteration. So if anything, I think in the next 10 or 20 years, we're headed for another one.
Another initiative. So basically, and Eric kind of talked about it, we're talking there's 45 years of history of California voters going to sign off on an initiative, which isn't easy, that basically says keep your hands out of our pockets unless we give you 2/3 of a vote.
Right. Yeah. And so, the whole idea is you can't just be stuck with the tax without any kind of say in it, which is quite frankly what's going on here.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
So about the Red Brennan suit particularly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it a fee? Is it a tax? What is it?
No. So a lot of times what local governments try to do is they try to claim something as a fee to get out of the special tax 2/3 majority vote requirements.
Right.
But the county's not even doing that here. They're claiming it's a special tax. They've, in all of their official correspondence and court documents, they've claimed it's a special tax. Essentially, the argument that they're going with is the tax was passed, like you talked about, in 2006 in the Hellendale community by only 1,022 voters. So they created this special fire district with a special tax for a special purpose to kind of rehabilitate their fire station. And that was passed in 2006. And so what the county is doing is they're taking this very small district and they're ballooning it to now cover the entire unincorporated, and it's over 19,000 square miles of property. So they're taking the tiny district and saying, because the people in this tiny district pay these taxes, when we expand the district to cover these 19,000 square miles, all of you now pulled into this district also have to pay the same taxes. So it's essentially a loophole for them to put taxation on people and say, but these people over here already approved it. You're just getting pulled in now. So it's fair according to them, but obviously we don't agree.
Okay, I mean, basically the entire county is being swallowed by a 1,000 voters, and it's not. I mean, we're not blaming the people in Hellendale. They did it legally, that type of thing. It's just the county took it and ran with it.
Right.
And why did they take it and run with it? We'll hit after our break, and we'll talk about kind of the background, some of the background in terms of county finances.
Why they're doing it. We'll be back with more U-Turn here on KCAA.
We'll be right back to U-Turn after this commercial break. Don't go away.
The House of Ruth has been providing life-saving domestic violence services since 1977. Participation in House of Ruth programming is open to all battered women, men, and children. Domestic violence is a public health issue. 1 in 4 women are abused by their partner, and it's 1 in 7 for men. Even 1 in 3 teens are exposed to dating violence in their relationships. If you or someone you know needs help or support, House of Ruth can help. Call the House of Ruth 24-hour crisis hotline, 877-988-5559, or visit their website, houseofruthinc.org. The Humane Society of San Bernardino Valley, protecting animals for more than 4 decades. The Humane Society's mission is to prevent cruelty and neglect to animals and to provide for the health and well-being of animals with an emphasis on spay or neuter programs to prevent pet overpopulation. Visit the Humane Society of San Bernardino Valley for your pet's medical needs, 909-386-1400, or visit hssbv.org. The Humane Society of San Bernardino Valley, a leading nonprofit organization in caring for all animals in need.
How would you feel if you had to make a choice between buying food or spending your fixed income on life-saving medicine? No one should make that trade-off, but many low-income seniors are forced into difficult decisions like this every day. Smiles for Seniors Foundation provides energy assistance and safety net services to struggling low-income seniors in the Inland Empire. They provide one-time assistance to seniors to meet specific financial needs. They've helped with food, housing, utility payments, minor home and auto repairs, along with life-saving prescriptions or medical equipment. a nonprofit foundation funded entirely by donations from local organizations. Smiles for Seniors receives no funding from the state or federal government. They are funded by local businesses and individuals like you with big hearts and willing wallets. You can find more information or to donate to Smile for Seniors at 909-790-6671. That's 909-790-6671, or visit smilesforseniorsfoundation.org. That's smilesforseniorsfoundation.org.
For more U-Turn Radio, go visit our website at uturnradio.com. That's uturnradio.com. And follow us on Instagram and Twitter at uturn_radio. That's at uturn_radio. Or follow us on Facebook at U-Turn Radio.
Tom, Nadia, and Eric are back with more only on the U-Turn Radio Show right here on KCAA.
Welcome back to U-Turn Radio. We are covering FP5 today. We are U-Turn Radio, our first show of the week at this time on Thursdays. We cover a little bit of local politics, and today we're covering FP5, which brings us to, before the show, we were talking about what is FP5, and we briefly went over it because you can find that at uturnradio.com. And pretty much they're imposing, what was it, $157 a month?
Yeah, with $157 a year.
A year, I'm sorry.
3% increase as long as it's approved.
Right. So that's what they're trying to impose without really the right way to do it as far as the votes. And before that, you asked Eric, where is this money going, or has it been going, right?
Yeah, so what we kind of want to hit on is kind of a general overview of money flow in the county budget as it pertains to county fire. You know, over the last 10 years, where's kind of the money been spent?
Right. And even like when they're asking for more money, you usually want to get something more in return since you're paying more. That's not the case here. So let's talk let's talk a little bit about where is this money flow going? How is it working out for the city?
Well, it's not going to the unincorporated areas that are getting charged with this tax. For the last 10 years, approximately, the expenditures in the what they call the desert and mountain regions of the county, which encompasses much of the unincorporated areas, have actually stayed flat or gone down. Where there's been a great increase in expenditures is in the city and the city areas, and also in their administrative management budget. So that's where they have a problem, and the problem largely comes from their taking on these different city fire departments, which have, like the county does, huge pension liabilities that they are not being honest about. So now the county has them, they're incorporated into their own pension liabilities, and they have to deal with them, and they need more money to do that. And so they're going to the area that it already has its budget flat or cut, and saying, we want you to pay for it. We're not going to pay for it here where that money is being spent.
How can, Sean...
So if you're in Redlands listening to the show where we broadcast from, you're incorporated, you're not having to pay an extra $157 on every parcel. If you own a piece of land out near Barstow, may have literally 1 or 2 bushes on it, and it could burn all day long, and no one would care. And there's no real fire cost associated with it. People in this county know that there's vast areas of desert, and those areas are all getting taxed. So it's completely detached the problem and paying for it from the people who are affected or benefiting from it.
Yeah, I talked to a guy in Trona yesterday, and if you guys don't know, Trona is like way north, almost to Kern County border. It's a small desert city. They basically have one industrial plant, which is, the entire, if you will, economy of the city. And the guy I talked to said, I got like 10 parcels, and right now I'm paying $30 a parcel on taxes.
Wow.
And next November,
right,
he's going to get a bill for 10 parcels at $100.
He's going to get $1,500 of tax, and none of it relates to him at all. There's been no increase in services, no increase in fire responsibility, no increase in cost in his area. You know, there was not a fire danger before. There's not a fire danger now, and that's where the tax is going.
And there's also different solutions rather than just like imposing this tax, right? We had Jeff Hewitt from ex-mayor from Calamasa cover that. You can find that on uturnradio.com, that show where he talks about a solution, because he had a solution for Calamasa back then.
The novel concept of let's look what we're spending and is it really required. It's not always that the expenses have to go up and up. The expenses with fire, with some of the county services, can go up and up, and they have been going up and up because the property values have been going up and up. And as they do, the amount they collect for these services increases. And they've been increasing greatly. I mean, there's been a huge increase in property values just in the last 10 years. But it's not enough. Never seems to be enough. And nobody wants to go look and see where's all this money going to. Maybe we can cut back on that. It's always, you know, where can we go get more money from people? And in this case, they're finding it hard to get money from the people who are getting the services, and so they're going way out into the far reaches of the county to the unincorporated areas and trying to tax those people for what they're spending here in the cities.
So Sean, what would you say, like, what's the direction here? Now that you're involved, how does this work as far as the lawsuit and Red Brennan coming in? How would you explain that part?
So what Red Brennan is doing is we brought a suit essentially to it's called, for a preliminary injunction, we're trying to enjoin or stop the tax from moving forward. So we think that when the county enacted the tax at their October 16th, 2018 meeting, where it was approved by the Board of Supervisors, that the tax is unconstitutional and therefore it needs to not be implemented. So essentially our suit is asking the court to not let them implement it.
Yeah, and it's not just based on it being unconstitutional when it was enacted. The way they carried out imposing the tax was unconstitutional as well. For instance, you could not. They said, "Look, if 25% of the people oppose this tax, we'll put it to a vote." And they could have certainly sent out a mailing to everybody and could have put it to a vote much cheaper than doing all this mailing stuff. But when they sent the mailing out, they didn't include a protest form. The only way you could get a protest form was a complicated procedure of downloading it on your computer and having certain software to do that. And that in itself is unconstitutional because, you know, not everybody has a computer, not everybody has that software, not everybody can participate in this process.
And the protest form was the only way you could vote. You had to have one of those. Well,
they got some assistant fire chief in charge of policing people right now that has made a statement in this thing saying that you could have come down to the fire station or something to that effect and got a protest form where you got you one. You could have gone to a county library and used a computer. Look, they sent a mailing out to everybody. We put a protest form in there.
Yeah, exactly. But they didn't.
They didn't put that protest form in there, and now they're coming up with all these other methods. But I mean, there's only one reason they didn't put a protest form in there is they didn't want anyone to protest.
It's kind of like when somebody sends you a letter and includes an envelope that says "mail it back to me," but it's not stamped. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks. Now I have to go to the post office.
And the
well, no, they didn't even do that. They could give you. They could give you a non-stamped, thing in the paperwork that they sent to everybody. They sent everybody this thing and then said, "Now you can protest." But there was no way to protest unless you went online
and found the form.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy deal.
Yeah, and the other part of this is the whole protest process assumes that everyone has voted yes.
Right.
And the no's that they get in, that has to, that's got to make its way up to 25%, and you're just right.
Right.
And it's a 30-day turnaround too.
Well, look, it's a rigged deal, and it was, certainly they would probably still got what they wanted if they had done something that was colorably correct in giving people a way to express their protest. So, but in our democracy, you cannot deny equal protection to different classes of people. Those with a computer, those without. If everybody has a right to protest, they have a right to protest whether they have a computer or not.
Yeah.
And that's another reason that this is unconstitutionally as applied, not just unconstitutional at the time they approved it.
I attended the FP5 supervisor meeting, which is interesting because a lot of the people that were there protesting, or not protesting, but that wanted to be against it, they're older people that don't know how to use a computer. So they're like, how do we do this? Or two, some were like, we didn't even know we got this letter. How did it look? Like they didn't have knowledge of what it looked like, because it looked like a regular, sometimes what could look like junk mail. It didn't say like attention, like nothing of that matter, So you're right. There's a lot of older people that were saying we never received it, or there's we don't have access to computer or internet. So how does this play, Sean? Like, how do people, like those type of people that didn't get a chance to, because and there's also mail returns. There's a lot of mail returns that they had as well. How does this work for those citizens that either didn't get an opportunity because of those things, whether they didn't get it or because of, is that like, can you fight that stuff?
Well, we're trying to. I mean, so I guess there's three goals of the lawsuit, or contentions rather. One is that the tax is unconstitutional as it's written. The second is that the procedure for letting people attempt to protest was unconstitutional. And the third is that the county has claimed they're exempt from environmental requirements, or what's called CEQA, and they need to conduct an environmental review before they can go on with this project. But ultimately, we are trying to fight for those people that really weren't able to make their voices heard or even have a chance to.
Yeah. Let's go to the phone. We have a caller, Ron Austin.
Yeah, and to introduce Ron, there are two lawsuits that the county is dealing with, other than the San Antonio Heights, and Mr. Austin brought the second lawsuit, and so he's on the line, and I think he's going to give us an update.
Welcome to U-Turn.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So, at the time that I brought my lawsuit, I wasn't aware that there was another lawsuit actually pending, but I'm glad to, have found out that there was. We're before Judge Cohen, and I'm disappointed at some of Judge Cohen's comments about the procedure being legal and being trumping the Constitution and all of that. But I just wanted to explain the reason that I brought my lawsuit is I do have one of those parcels out near Barstow, and it's not worth. It's worth about $1,000. That's the assessed value on it, and this tax will eat up the entire value of that parcel in less than 6 years. So, at that point, I right now I'm confronted with: do I just let this parcel go? And I think a lot of people in these, unincorporated, vast desert area, a lot of parcels out here, and people who are currently paying, 10, 15, 20 bucks in taxes, are just going to say, we're not going to, pay this, let it go. All of these are going to go up for auction. Nobody's going to buy it. It could actually cause a decrease in the overall revenues, for the county, and I don't think they considered that. And as far as what this is paying for, I mean, you've talked about, budgetary shortfalls and things. I think it isn't even really a budgetary shortfall. It's just, reserves. Their reserves are going down, and the fire chief, I don't know if anybody's mentioned, and I don't know if this is correct, maybe somebody can correct me, but, he makes something on the order of $500,000 a year, $500,000, which is, what is that, twice what the President of the United States makes. So I was just unhappy with it across the board, and that's why I brought my lawsuit, and I'll let you comment, but I do have a legal question for the lawyers in a moment, which is why I phoned in.
Go ahead, shoot.
Okay, well, the legal question would be, Judge Cohen, you realize they're relying on this one case, this Sunset Beach case, to support all of this, which is kind of a small outlier of a case. It doesn't really, factually apply, but legally I don't think it applies because it's using, government, it's all brought under government code. I think it's 570.
Yeah, the island annexation statutes.
Right, which is 57075 is what they're functioning under, and that only applies to cities and to registered voter districts, and that term is defined in one sentence in Government Code 56072. and that basically says when the board members are elected, by the public. And here, of course, the board members are elected, but for an entirely different board. They're the County Board of Supervisors, but they were appointed to this board. And I mean, wouldn't that one point alone legally just undermine what Judge Cohen said? And ultimately, this will probably wind up on appeal, and when it does, I mean, don't you think the Court of Appeal is going to find it a rather strained argument to say, well, yeah, sure, these guys are, appointed, they're elected because they're elected for a whole nother board. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I was wondering how you felt about the strength of that point.
Right. So I think you're right that it does make a big legal distinction there, but I think it's one of many big legal distinctions. So the Sunset Beach case, as you rightly stated, was about a 190,000 person city at the time of 2010, Huntington Beach, annexing 971 people in Sunset Beach. Here we have kind of the opposite. We have 1,022 voters in Hellendale somehow being able to annex over 19,000 square miles. It's kind of like the reverse situation. So not only are there legal distinctions like you brought up in that particular area, but there's multiple distinctions in terms of the Sunset Beach. It dealt specifically with an island being annexed. There's no island being annexed here. It's literally a district being ballooned to cover thousands and thousands of people. It's under a completely different section of law. And I think that the Sunset Beach is kind of the great example of a runaway case. A case where the Court of Appeal at the time had a specific set of facts and felt like they applied them, at least in their judgment, appropriately to that specific set of facts. And now I think it's kind of become a Frankenstein's monster of a case because we're using it as a club to impose taxation on communities everywhere. And when someone challenges it, the county, every time I've dealt with them, has hid behind Sunset Beach. Well, Sunset Beach says this, so the case is decided, Your Honor. We should, be able to get away with this. And ultimately, I think you're right. I think on appeal, Sunset Beach needs to be narrowed. In fact, I think it needs to be narrowed to that specific case and nothing else, because it really, maybe if there's another island annexation case somewhere in the future, then Sunset Beach could apply, but it doesn't apply here. Factually and legally, it is entirely distinct, and I don't think it has any precedential value here.
I totally agree with you factually, and that's a lot of the things in our writ of mandate went to the factual differences, and it was basically 144 acres versus the 19,000 some miles square miles that you had mentioned, and as we put it, the tail can't wag the dog here, which is what's happening. And so it's as far as that case factually, but in reading it, towards the tail end of the case, the court actually analyzed this whole annexation thing and says, well, the voters, and by the way, Prop 218 was brought in to close loopholes like this that were created after Prop 13, and the courts, are doing it again with this, as you know. But anyway, the court had come to the opinion that, well, the voters didn't really contemplate this, and I'll just use my word, they didn't say loophole, but what they did in Sunset Beach, they were saying, well, the voters didn't really contemplate that, so it's okay. To me, they should have reached the opposite conclusion and said, yeah, this isn't something that the voters really were contemplating. That's why they didn't specifically address annexation. So, I mean, the court, they analyzed it, but they kind of came to the wrong conclusion there. And so we'll see where it winds up. But I think regardless of what Judge Cohen or anybody does on, down here in San Bernardino County Court, I think the Court of Appeal is going to be a lot more receptive. And if it has to go to the Supreme Court, I think if they take it, they've always sided with, the voter intent. And I think they would here, too.
Yeah, I do agree with you. The appellate courts tend to be very friendly to the will of the people as opposed to the runaway budget needs of local government when it comes to this sort of thing. So I think you're definitely right on that.
Well, in fairness to Judge Cohen, I mean, from his point of view, how he's looking at it, because they're basically, put it frankly, they're lying to him. They're saying, well, it's fire protection for all of the people. If you're a judge confronted with this and you're wondering, well, the fire department's got to get money from somewhere, so let's just do this. I mean, nobody's talking about that $500,000 salary or anything else. Nobody's talking about the fact that they're already getting funded by that 1%, which, that amount goes up every year as well. The property values go up. They get a portion of that 1%, which is supposed to be apportioned according to use in the first place. So if it is, why is there this budget shortfall in these other areas? There's, a lot of questions. I mean, it's clearly just a trick, and there's enough people out here now that are saying you're not going to get away with this, and I think they're not, and I think their own county council knows they're not.
Right.
Well, they're maybe know that they're not, but they do believe that they can delay long enough for this tax to become implemented as they take it through the court system.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and they made the argument. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but they made the argument before, and this was pointed out. They made the argument before that, if this comes in, we're going to put this through, but it could always be undone by the courts. And then when they went in before Judge Cohen, they're like, oh no, this can't be undone because this is now we pegged all our hopes on this.
Yeah, you can't enjoin a tax. There's part of their attack on it right now. So
yeah, they did a total reversal on their position. And they're just they're making it sound like it's all about public safety, and I can see a judge being receptive to that. But if you scratch the surface a little bit, it just isn't true.
Yeah, there. Luckily, there's other judges in our county besides Judge Cohen. And we will try and have some of them be the ones that rule on this.
Mm-hmm. Ron, you mentioned that you it makes you think like maybe you should just let go of what you owe. What would the city do, Sean, if somebody were to say, you know what, this is not worth it, this is way more money than what this piece of land is worth? What happens there?
They have many parcels that they've taken back in that form. They put them up for sale, and if nobody buys them, they're owned by the county.
Yeah, I guess they'd just be abandoned property at that point.
They will be. I've bought them at auction. I've actually bought properties off of the tax auction. And it's a good deal because you can pick up a parcel for $1,000 or so. The tax is like $10. I'm talking about per acre basis. It's about $1,000 an acre, and you pay about a tax of about $10. And with this, I mean, it's not relatively small tax. It might be relatively small to somebody who has a $500,000 property somewhere in the city, and they're paying already, $5,000 a year. Well, yeah, $168, which increases every year, by the way. It doesn't stay $168. It's not a relatively small. It's 16 times what I'm paying right now, and that's it makes it so that you just don't even want to. What's the point in keeping a property that you're going to pay that much every year? And a lot of people out here, they have these parcels, been in their family for a long time. Sometimes they let the tax go. They'll come along and pay it 3-4 years into it, $30, $40. They're not going to come along and pay, $500. They don't have the means to do that. It's not a relatively small tax. It's a very, very large tax.
Yeah, you're talking about the less affluent parts of the county that are actually getting this tax imposed on them in a county that has an average income of about $45,000 anyway. So there's
and it's the largest. This is the largest county, as I'm sure you're aware, the largest county in California, the 6th largest in the nation, and that is because it's not because there's so many population-wise. I'm just talking land-wise. It's mostly vacant land, and anybody that just needs to drive from here in the city to the Nevada border to go to Las Vegas, all of that land, all of those parcels. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about, the populated areas. They already have this tax imposed in those areas.
Yep.
Right.
Thanks for calling in, Ron.
Many of them don't have this tax imposed.
We're bumping up against our time limit. Good.
That's right, Ron. So thank you so much for calling in. We're going to go ahead and spin for charity for you.
Spin for charity. Anybody who calls, we spin, and it looks like $700. Whoa!
You want $700.
So we'll contact you
for your favorite charity.
Yeah, this goes to your favorite charity.
You can't pay your taxes with it. Sorry.
I really want to do something for dogs outside. It's cold out there, and if there's any kind of dog charity that you guys can come up with, that would be my favorite charity.
Okay, we'll contact you offline and get some of your information and track that down, Ron.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ron, for sharing your time. Thank you, Sean, for sharing your time with us today. We'll be back next Thursday at 3 o'clock. We are U-Turn Radio. For more U-Turn, make sure you go to our website, uturnradio.com.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.